All right, so today on Stories with Steve is the story of I Am Not Your Father. All right, so here we go. Now, this story takes place the early to mid 90s in the Bronx, in between the Allerton and Pelham Parkway region of the Bronx. Now, one of the stars of this story is Dro. Dro is a skinny Dominican guy, rides around on a bike most of the time, smokes a lot of bud, and carries a boombox, right? He blasts his music. Sometimes he's blasting hip hop. Sometimes he's blasting Spanish music, right? Now, Dro has this on again, off again kind of friends with benefits slash friendship with a girl who lives in the Pelham Parkway projects, right? They're cool and they have their little situation, blah, blah, blah. Now, there's another character, this guy named Jose. Jose's this fat Puerto Rican dude that's like a transplant to the area. So he doesn't live in the Pelham Parkway area. He doesn't live in the Allerton area, right? But he's just over there, right? Nobody really likes him. He's kind of a loud mouth, know it all kind of guy. And he also has a habit of harassing women and sometimes beating them. So where two lines get twisted is basically the same girl that Dro had the friends with benefits relationship with. Jose decided I'm gonna try to get with her. I'm gonna try to hit on her. I'm gonna try to talk to her, right? So what ends up happening is she doesn't want any of his advances. She doesn't want to talk to him. She doesn't want to give him, any play, nothing. Which most guys would be like, okay, on to the next one. But Jose's an idiot. So Jose keeps on pressing the issue. He keeps pressing the issue and pressing the issue. And she keeps on denying him access to even the air around her, never mind her herself. But Jose can't take this. He can't take no for an answer. So he keeps on hitting on her and hitting on her and hitting on her. And she's like, get away. I don't like you or I don't want you. I can get somebody else, blah, blah. Now he starts saying stuff to her family, right? And then one day he gets so angry, he attempts to hit her. Pushes her and attempts to hit her or whatever. So now this is going all bad. He couldn't take no for an answer. So girl gets on the phone. She calls Dro. Dro's like, what? Dro gets on his bike with his little boombox, right? Rides over from the Allerton area to the Pelham Parkway area. Now, Jose was known for hanging out in front of the little deli over there, a few blocks up from the Pelham Parkway projects. And he'd be over there talking nonsense, whatever, hitting on girls. They're looking at him like, right? So Dro knows this. Dro knows that this guy hangs around his deli. So Dro rides his bike over there, puts his radio down and his bike down, and waits to either see Jose come out of the deli or go into the deli. So Jose happened to be in the deli. I don't know if he was getting a Lucy, whatever he's doing. So he comes out of the deli, and Dro goes, hey, why are you bothering so-and-so? What you talking about? Like, don't play games with me. You bothering her, and you need to leave her alone. Or you're going to have to mess with me. Jose turns around, I'll do whatever I want. And da-da-da-da. Dro's like, really? Dro hits him. Dro hits him again. Dro's hitting him with 4, 5, 6, 7 different type of combos. He's kicking him. He's punching him, right? Now this dude, who's all tough with the females and just standing in front of the deli, he's on the floor getting pummeled, right? He's getting kicked in the face, kicked in the neck, kicked in the ribs. He's getting stomped out. Deservingly, right? So now he resorts to, he leaves all the tough stuff alone. And now he's trying to beg for his life, right? Because his feet are going into his mouth, across his nose and his eyes. He's getting kicked in the ear. His ear's ringing. He's out of shape. He's getting kicked in the belly. He can't breathe. And Dro's just laying into him. Like at this point, he's not even using hands anymore. He's just stomping out of him. So Jose starts going, Poppy, stop. No, Poppy. No, please, Poppy. Don't do this to me, Poppy. Poppy. Now, both these dudes Hispanic, right? But Dro's like, dude, stop calling me Poppy, and kicks him harder. He's like, no, but please, Poppy. And Dro looks at him and goes, I am not your father, and kicks him dead in the face. Now Jose's knocked unconscious on the floor, looking like a plate of mashed potatoes that got thrown off the table, all discombobulated, right? And Dro just calmly gets on his bike. He gets back on his bike with his radio and cruises over to Alton Avenue, right? Thinking the whole issue is dealt with. Now, again, Jose is a transplant in the Pelham Parkway area. He's not from any of these buildings or private houses or the projects or nothing. So none of these people really gonna have his back like that. So he had to resort to getting money from somewhere and offering guys that lived in the projects down the block to come with him to Allerton. Now, I guess his idea was he would pay a bunch of these guys from the projects to come with him, and then when they would see Dro, they would jump him. Because obviously Jose knows a one-on-one fight wouldn't go over well. It would just be part 2 of Poppy, Poppy, stop, I'm not your father. Right? So he gets these guys. Now, they're, walking with him, supposedly looking for Dro, right? At the time, I'm a kid, I'm riding my little bike up and down the block. I may be like, I don't know, 12 or something like that. 12, 13, something. I'm riding my little bike up and down the block, right? Now, Dro and the rest of his homeboys, they up the block smoking a blunt, right? Listening to music, chilling. So Jose comes to the corner, right? He's this chubby, very pale, very overweight Puerto Rican dude wearing like a dirty wife beater. And he's got 2 or 3 dudes from the projects that are taller than him, bigger than him, look like they might be in way better shape than him, right? So he asked me and my homeboy Eddie, y'all seen Dro? So we're like, why? Who are you? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, tell him Jose's looking for him. Now, what he didn't realize is, 1, everybody cool with Dro in the neighborhood. 2, Dro's up the block with a bunch of his homeboys, and they can all fight just as good as him, right? So Eddie goes riding up the block and says, hey, Dro, there's this guy looking for you. Some guy named Jose with a dirty wife beater. Dro's like, oh, really? He came back for more? Tell him I'll be over there in a few minutes. So now, Dro comes down calmly down the block, riding his bike, comes to the corner, and goes, what's up? You want your ass whipped again? And then Jose goes, no, it's time for you to get your ass whipped. Look what I got. Looking at these guys, but now these guys from the projects are looking a little uneasy. They're like, man, we might just take the money and dip. So while they're going back and forth, the rest of Dro homeboys, right, they start walking down the block now. Now it's not just Dro. It's Dro, his homeboys, me, Eddie, everybody in the neighborhood is now there. These dudes from the projects look at each other like, well, we already got paid. Like, you know what I mean? So they tap Jose on the shoulder and go, hey, thanks for the money. We'll see you some other time. And they just walk off. Right? His bodyguards are now gone. Dro looks at him. Right? And Jose knows that now he's in a rock and a hard place. His plan is, spoiled like milk, and he doesn't know what to do. So he looks like he wants to run. Dro grabs him, pulls him back, commenced to whipping his ass again. Now, it could have been worse. You know what I mean? There was all of Dro's homeboys there. There was me and a few of my homeboys there. And, if it would have came to it, he probably would have got a bad Allerton-style ass whooping, But fortunately, Dro just wanted to whip his ass again. Now, the location of Jose, who knows? After that second ass whipping, he stopped hanging around the Pelham Parkway projects. He stopped harassing girls. He stopped being in the area in general. Maybe he changed his life. Maybe two ass whippings going back to back, in a matter of a few days. You know what I'm saying? Kind of knocked some sense into him. So he was never really seen again. He probably went back to whatever block that he was really transplanting from. And that's it. But that's the story of I Am Not Your Father.